Yes, 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 yes. One time back at you here. It is the Castworthy podcast. I am Big Steve, aka Last of a Dying Breed, on the Twitter machine. It is Monday, April 8th, 2019. I am here with my regulars, EJ the Savage and the VP of Research. And tonight we have a guest appearance from one of our guys, Senor E. How you gentlemen doing this fine evening?
Gucci.
What
Yo,
what's
yo.
going on?
All right. Lots of energetic responses from you guys. Um, so we're here tonight, not watching the national championship game because Zion's not in it. So all the hype that we've seen all year is trash. So here we are recording. Um, where do we start? Oh, let's start
Hmm.
with saying follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter. Um, like us, follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. On all of those platforms, it's just at Castworthy. Just type in the word Castworthy in the search, and we'll pop up. Like us, comment, ride with us, and show some love. So, what's on the document, gentlemen?
Kodak Black.
Kodak Black. Before we get started with Kodak Black, I don't want to jump right into that. I do want to jump into I was driving today twice. Actually, drove more than twice today. But on the way to work and on the way from work, both times there was an ambulance that that popped up behind me, and sirens blaring, and it was good to see. I don't know what is changing, but people actually pull to the right, and that just doesn't seem to be the norm. I know it's not a big thing, but I don't know what could be potentially causing that. I don't know if you guys have seen the same type of humility taking place lately, or just no fucks given type of driving.
What time of day was that? Because I see that, and if it's rush hour traffic, I'm definitely not seeing people move out of the way.
True, true. Early in the morning, probably about 8:30, and then coming home probably about 4:30. So
Wow,
yeah, I mean there was traffic out
yeah, that's
there.
rush hour.
Surprisingly, people were actually getting out of the way. So,
Is this in
Yeah, that's funny.
Winter Park or Kissimmee?
no, this is in Orlando, close to my house.
Okay.
Um,
That's funny
all
though.
right.
I saw the same thing in DC today, and motherfuckers were not moving at all.
I was
Like,
gonna say you guys don't sound interested in this topic.
nah, I mean, motherfuckers was not moving at all. Like, just not getting over. It was pretty rough.
Yeah, man. You think about like who could be in the back of that shit. It could be anybody. It could be a family member. I mean, not your family member because you would know, but I mean, if your family member was in the back of that, you would want people moving. So
Hmm.
that, that's how I've been looking at it lately.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I always get over, but back home, man, back in Miami, it seemed like motherfuckers got over depending on whether or not they could catch a light by you know taking one for the team for that ambulance or whatever.
It always kills me, like when you see the person that's trying to follow the ambulance and shit. Like they were like the 10th car in the lane, and they're trying to follow and cut everybody off. Like, dog, what are you
Yeah,
doing, man?
Right. Like the asshole.
Like, what's wrong with you, man? Get out the way.
Right.
All right, let's get into it. You guys aren't enthusiastic about this topic. Kodak Black. So, we talked last week about Nipsey Hussle passing away, and we all know he was with Lauren London, and I mean, it's good to see. I mean, a lot of good has come from it, with a lot of the gang violence or the gangs coming together in LA, and a lot of positive energy seems to have risen from it. So, I mean, sucks to see somebody, die, but as part of it, it's better to see that type of response from our community and our people than, the alternative, right?
Yeah.
The one thing that also did though for me is it was an eye opener, man. And so I just been thinking like all week, seeing that and reading and seeing the news and reading articles and stuff about him and leaving his kids and stuff like that. And I grew up in an area where it was predominantly minorities, and in my schools there were people that there were constantly people that said my father or whatever passed away when I was young, and just seeing the whole Nipsey Hustle thing, um, kind of motivated me and gave me this one goal in life to have my kid never be that kid to have to say that like my kid passed away when I was young or like when I was 3 years old or you know what I mean? My dad passed away when I was young or I was 3 years old or whatever the case may be. I don't know if you guys have ever thought about that, but that's been on my mind for the last week.
Well, of course, for you, um, not to take away your feeling about it at this moment, but I mean, if you got to remember, you just became a dad, so the three of us, the other three of us on this call who have been parents quite some time. That's always, I'm pretty sure, speaking for me, but probably will be echoed by the other two gentlemen. That's always been something that's always on our mind, and it's a real fear. Um, Not only for health reasons, but because of the violence that a Nipsey Hussle experienced, and not only that, police racism, etc. And so, yeah, it's a very real thing, especially for a father and a father of color to have that desire to stay alive, for their kids, man. And, it goes back to a looping theme that we kind of touch on about the black men in the country and in the world today. And it's just a different fear that I know we have that other genders or ethnicities don't typically feel, in my anecdotal opinion.
That's true. That's it's I've I've always looked at my fear is keeping my kids alive. I know from basically from birth to about maybe 10, you're literally trying to make sure that they don't die from like stupid shit, from like falling down the stairs or running out in traffic and stabbing themselves with it. It's the dumbest stuff that it's literally like critical. Um, you're just watching your kids and making sure that they survive. But on the flip side of that, you trying to, as a father, you're trying to pass on as much as you know to your children. Um, I know as a parent, I went into it um, trying to prepare my children for life without me, because if everything works out the way it's supposed to be, that's going to happen, right? It's not going to happen the other way around. I hope it, you know, God forbid it happens the other way around. Like they are going to be here and I'm not. That's eventually going to happen. So you're trying to pass along as much as you can to those children. It's why I write a lot. You know, I just keep like, and I won't say it's a daily journal. Sometimes it's daily. I'll get on a kick. Sometimes it's every other week. I've gone without writing for like a year, but I just write like what I'm feeling. You know, I write stupid stuff. I'll write about sports or whatever. Um, what you're doing right now, Steve, with this podcast, I mean, your child's gonna hear this, so he's gonna know what's in your thoughts at this time in your life, which is gonna be, priceless to those kids. But basically, all four of us. You know what I mean? They're gonna hear us, um, and if everything doesn't crash with what we're doing right now. So Um, I just say I've always told parents to do that. Just try to log or journal what you're doing because you never know. I mean, you can try, and there's no way to know when you are going to be called, and someone's just going to punch your ticket. It can happen in an accident. It can happen somebody's coming after you. You never know.
Yeah, I totally agree with what was said. Especially like listening to E, that was kind of hitting home for me because as you guys know, I lost my mom when I was young. I wasn't a young kid like Nipsey's kids, but I was 19 when I lost my mom, and I had to do a lot of growing up fast. And planning funeral arrangements and stuff like that. And like E was saying, you want to be there for your kids. You want to teach them and help them grow and help them learn about the world. Because even like as an adult, like I remember when I bought my first car, I'm like 19 years old or whatever, and I call mom or whatever, and like, hey, I'm thinking about buying this car. This is how much they're selling it for, this type of car, how many miles I got on it, et cetera, et cetera. And she kind of walked me through that, and then she passes away like maybe 6 months later or whatever, and now I don't got that person that I can bounce ideas off of, hey, get her input on various decisions that I'm thinking about or whatever. So you definitely want to be there for your kids to ensure that you can help mold them, because even once they become adults, I mean, if you got the right kind of relationship with your child, even once they age out of your house and start becoming their own man or own woman or whatever, if the foundation of that relationship was good, from the jump, that kid is still going to be coming to you. Hey, I'm thinking about pursuing this career. I'm thinking about, you know, taking a relationship to the next step with this man or woman. I'm thinking about making this big purchase or, et cetera, et cetera. So you want to make sure that you're here to help mold your kid through those things or whatever. Because if you're not, then what happens is that somebody has to fill that vacuum, right? Somebody got to fill that void, and they start getting shitty advice from their friends. Case in point, my niece, one of her friends told her she didn't have to file taxes because she didn't make that much money because she just does a little part-time gig while she's in school. And I'm like, yeah, that's fucking bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So
My
like just
God.
little stuff like that, you not here, and then your kids talking to their friends who, are these damn, experts in everything or whatever, and they're getting just the worst advice. So you definitely want to be here to help shape and mold your kids.
And I mean, keeping it 100, man. Like who really wants to go? I mean, I don't even like talking about it that much, but just the first thing you learn in life, probably, and I haven't done research, but it's self-preservation. you know, and then it intensifies. Like Steve is probably one of the most self-centered people I know in the world until he has this kid and his whole viewpoint changes. Now you're not just living for yourself.
Disrespectful.
Yeah, I'm telling the truth. Now you're not just living for yourself and your wife. And he's always been very loving of his sisters and nieces and mom and dad and etc. But it's a difference when now it's like, okay, I can't just be excessive with the AK no more. Like I got to scale this back a little bit. Especially and then culturally, man. When you do research on the Black father or the father of color and the sacrifice and the thought process that goes into it, because we, unlike other cultures, most of us don't come from wealth, and we don't, we don't. If you look at the numbers, man, and just the mortality rates and the things that happen, just in our culture, these guys don't have the mistaken identity issue or the I live in this city issue where I live in the most violent city in America. One of the top three, depending on the day, depending on the rate and the study. So it's these things of anxiety that we got to think of. Okay, if Steve's gonna be at the 7-Eleven with his music blasted, does he have to clutch his pistol because some racist jerk off might try to shoot him? You know, God forbid, knock on wood. But you know, these are the things that we have to go through, and this is that PTSD, that trauma that we as men of color have to endure. That you know, law by and large, the Caucasian male may not typically have to go through, and rope that all in with you have children now.
Yeah. That's yeah, it's strange, man. That they'll change you. Kids will change you, man. And when you see situations like this is the first situation that really made me kind of think like that, of course, since my since the kid was born, since Ash was born, but yeah, so we kind of went off on a tangent, and I apologize for that. So we were talking about Kodak Black kind of disrespecting Nipsey Hussle in a way where he spoke of Lauren London, and I have the audio here, so I'm gonna play it just in case people are not familiar with it, and then we'll have a little dialogue behind it. My nigga, that's the impact. Lauren London, that baby though, she finna be out here single. She finna be a whole widow out here. I'd be the best man I could be, fuck. I give her a whole year. She might need a whole year to be crying and shit. The for dude though. I ain't trying to shoot at her. I'm saying, listen, look. No, she could do 2-3 years, but I just try to be I try to be like, if you need a friend to holler or soda vino, you can call my line. So basically, it sounds like, I mean, I don't know if he was disrespecting her. It was certainly disrespectful to Nipsey, and of course, being so quickly after he passed away in my eyes, it was definitely uncalled for. And then you had, Ti. I commend Ti for being the first one to kind of come out and mention, the fact that he needed to clean that shit up. And then you had everybody else jump on the bandwagon and stuff, and you of course had the game, with his fake tough guy stuff jumping in. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know if I see it as a true, shot or anything like that. I don't know. I think it's just, these kids nowadays are ignorant, and maybe he didn't know what he was saying could be taken so disrespectful. What do you guys think when you hear that and you think of it being in regards to Nipsey Hussle just passing?
Um, the thing about it is, and even on the video, you hear his man saying too soon. The other thing about it is Kodak Black has, I think this is the last straw for people, especially people like me. It started with him saying that Lil Wayne should die, and then Lil Wayne's daughter coming at him and saying, "You wish you could be half what my father was." Then the whole thing about the rape or sexual assault allegations that kind of got brushed under the rug. Still don't know too much about that. For me personally, I didn't do much research because I didn't really even know who the kid was at the time. Then you got the first of all, let's not forget, I think he's the same kid that came out with the whole ski mask vibe thing. Okay. Then you got him saying he's better than Biggie and Tupac. Then before that, I'm sorry, he says he would never date a dark-skinned woman. Like, he doesn't want dark-skinned women. He only wants light-skinned women. So the colorism aspect. Then he says the Biggie and Tupac thing. Now this. And it's like, for somebody who meant so much to so many people that wasn't even big-time fans, just seeing this guy as being who Nipsey has been larger than who he was even alive in his death. It hasn't even been a week when he said these things. It wasn't even a week. And it's just like Kodak Black, while it does sound like he just wasn't saying the right thing and he wasn't articulating it, even after he was confronted about it, he kept going with it. That's one thing. Two, I also believe he's smarter than we give him credit for because he's clearly gotten this far. And 3, if you don't know anything else, you from the hood or some part of it, or at least you portray to be. You know, by and large, that this behavior, these comments, is not something to be said about another man's widow or lady that he left behind. And then it's like, you just truly look like a sucker. Like you didn't say nothing like this when homie was alive. And it's like if you can do that, you're just a disrespectful dude. And you just shouldn't get no pass on this, period. And shout out to Power, I think 106 FM in LA. They've taken a stand. Yeah, Power 106 FM in LA. They've taken a stand to no longer support his music. And I think the culmination of just everything that he's been doing is fully warranted, man. And it's only and these are some ways other than the street justice that these young punks are gonna really
Do
learn.
you think? I mean, first of all, it's a total dick move. What he's doing. Do you think he knew he was being recorded? Do you think he's just trying to get hits? The whole thing of there's no such thing as bad publicity. You think that's something that he was doing, or he's just an idiot?
I think you're right. Looking at the video, because it's a video, and seeing the video on Instagram, it's blurry. It looked like somebody, he was possibly on a tour bus because he's on tour right now, and it looks like somebody might have caught just caught it and decided, what, let me throw this up there for whatever they're looking for. So I think you're right.
Or he's just fishing out there for responses.
Yeah. And then to EJ's point, I think, he responded to to Ti. Now, I mean, he's a man, right? And a man is gonna be a man. If you attack my character, or you attack me in general, naturally I gotta say something back. What do they expect him to do? Just step back and be like, oh well, Ti's talking. I guess I gotta listen, type shit. You know what I mean? I don't think it goes down like that, especially when, especially in that culture, in the hip hop culture. So, um, I can't really hold him on that. And then what I do hold him on though is his apology, where he said something like, I apologize if I offended Lauren London, even though I didn't. Like, how do you make that
Uh,
determination? Maybe he meant even though I didn't mean to, or whatever. But like, you record that, you put that out, you should have heard yourself say even though I didn't, as opposed to even though I didn't mean to, or I had no ill will or whatever.
I mean, either way, if he did it on purpose, dick. If he didn't do it on purpose, stupid dick. He's just, there's no reason to talk about someone else's, loved one after that brutal killing, to somebody that, obviously was doing so much for the community, more than, I would dare say, more than he's doing for the community. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't get it. These kids are like desensitized. It's kind of scary, actually. It's kind of like Lord of the Flies out this bitch with these kids.
Yeah, it's just like no regard. Seemed like he had no regard for him when you hear what he said. Was it locker room talk though? I mean, if we're talking like that, and like we said,
None of us talked. We have some crazy locker room talk. None of us are.
I wouldn't go that
You
far
know
on
what I mean?
anybody's grieving, you know, wife or what have you. Definitely not. But if he wasn't thinking that he was going to be recorded and it wasn't planned for him to be recorded, first of all, he needs to find out, where it came from, and clean that person out of there, because they clearly don't give a shit, if they put him out there like that. Um, but yeah, it was dirty, and had it been just behind closed doors and nobody, it never surfaced, who knows? People joke and say, I'm sure shit 10 times worse than that. And had it not been for Nipsey passing away, I'm sure, a lot of people were thinking that same thing probably while he
Yeah.
was with her.
Yeah, I mean, again, for me, again, and I do agree with both of you guys in the locker room, water cooler talking, that he was seemingly recorded, not knowing. But then he doubled down, and then yeah, and I get your point on that, Steve. But I guess again, I think it's you know this guy, he's just been involved with stuff back to back to back to back, and I think at this point, you know, people are tired. They're tired of him, and once you continually dig yourself in a hole, you're not gonna have much room to climb out of it. And even now, it's been days after, like you said, he had a horrible apology, and I really don't think that there's any remorse, and I agree with E. These cats are so desensitized, they're so reckless. I just feel like dude needs to be checked, man, and somebody's got to take a stand. I mean, he's had way too many things going on. Like, he's just said too many disrespectful things, within a year's time. And that's why I really could care less about any of that, because there's just certain things that, he's a Florida kid, you know, he knows if you don't know much, this, you know what I mean? And again, I mean, would we have known that he said it had he didn't get recorded? No, but you then double down and you haven't made it right since. So I don't know.
Yeah. I think it's like I said, I commend Ti, but all the other dudes, like, I mean, we get it. You guys are tough guys. You're hip hop artists. We don't need to hear that shit from everybody. Like, Ti got it out there, got the message out there. I don't think there was a need for the game to record his. Like, you know what I mean? He's always trying to be super tough guy, and I just don't think it's I don't think it's necessary. But still,
But I guess right that you have no the game music on your listening devices.
I I do have game music, but that doesn't justify his behavior.
The game is being super hypocritical too, though, in the sense that you know he came out with the teaser of one of his tracks that's going to talk about how he used to smash Kim K and was making her choke on his meat, and then he was talking about then he said something about Joe Budden's wife or fiance. um and if you listen to Joe Budden's podcast, he addressed it and he was very upset about it. You know what I mean? So the game, while the obvious difference in this instance is that all of these guys are allowed to speak on it and they weren't just brutally murdered. I mean, again, you ain't the best person to really be talking about any of that outside of the death part, because the culture that you're perpetuating, talking about somebody else's wife or fiance, is part of the reason why some of these cats feel emboldened to say anything. Maybe not Kodak Black in this instance, but who knows? You know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
I'm a major game fan, and I was kind of with you on that, Steve. I'm a major game fan, but I kind of felt the same way. Other than the obvious connection that he knew him and felt some kind of way, I was just like, come on, fam.
Yeah. Still in all, rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle. We still gotta say that, and like I said, it's good to see so much positive that that has been coming from it. Um, moving on, EJ, give me something. What do you got?
I don't want to talk too much, but to lead to lead VP and E, um Antonio Brown versus Juju Twitter war.
I didn't hear much about it. I saw that Antonio said something like he fumbled away the season, but did Juju ever answer?
I think he like
Yeah. So essentially, what happened is somebody made the comment about excuse me, about Pittsburgh naming Juju as like the team MVP. And then Antonio Brown puts out on Twitter, something about my man fumbled away the whole season or something like that. Juju responded, but he essentially said, the whole time that he was here in Pittsburgh, I looked up to him even when he, got traded. I was happy, that he was happy essentially. And, he's just can't believe, the shit that Antonio Brown is saying about him essentially. He basically took the higher road. But, to go back to a conversation that we had about AB way earlier when we first, started on this endeavor of the podcast. This dude is something wrong with him, right? I mean, from the crazy shit in the locker room, the crazy shit going on between him and Ben, between him and Mike Tomlin, the fucking blue hair. Now this shit, like, it's something wrong with this dude,
That
like
mustache.
mentally. I mean, yeah, like all of that shit. I think it's something mentally going on with this guy, and I think that we've probably seen the best of Antonio Brown because most guys, when you see them in the league, when they get to this point to where they're becoming a caricature of themselves, the production goes way down. So I would say we've probably seen the best of Antonio Brown, and we'll probably be seeing him leaving the league within the next season or two because it's just too much bullshit.
That's bold. What do you think, E
I
or E?
I think BP got something on. I think he's right about that. Maybe Vontae Burfict really that hit uh really screwed his head up. Maybe he got like, yeah, I mean, maybe that really impacted. You know what? I uh I will put my bet up there again. I will double down on my bet this year in our fantasy that Juju outscores AB. I will take I will put 5 on it. Anybody can get on that action because I think I agree with VP. I think that his production is just going to go down rapidly.
Yeah, I was in another platform, another chat with another fantasy league. Um and it was a couple guys in there, I mean, doubling down, defending AB. And it's crazy because, guys kind of let him be light with it today when they were talking about it because I didn't click on it at first. And yeah, like Steve was saying, or somebody said, a fan, AB was going back and forth with a fan. The fan basically throws in AB's face that Juju was the MVP. And then comes at Juju, and then, Juju uses something AB said, like, keep your emotions down, and
Right.
and then AB then posts a DM that Juju sent him at USC when he was in college, basically saying, hey, AB, I'm a big fan. I mean, any advice you can give me because I'm thinking I'm going to the league, kind of thing. I'm paraphrasing, and it's just real sucker shit behavior. And I think me and Vari, and I agree with E. I don't think his production is going to be that good. I mean, he's getting older. You got all this drama. You put this target on your back now. I know John Gruden ain't happy with it, and you just look like a sucker right now. And God forbid, I don't want to wish injury on him, but I think he might have been injured once in his career thus far, if that. So if that's the only
Mm-hmm.
time, you got to think, man, that might be on the horizon too. And it's just like, yo, not only that, the other thing was Shannon Sharp dug in his ass, talking about how Shannon Sharp was basically saying how he been saying son been a clown for the longest. And the thing that makes you look so crazy now is that you blamed everything that you was going through on Ben Roethlisberger. And now you're attacking not only a good guy who hasn't said or done anything to you, he's your fellow former wide receiver core mate. And you just look like a sucker, man. And I gotta compliment Le'Veon Bell and thank my lucky Jet stars in hopes that he doesn't say anything. But even Le'Veon, who got the rawest end of the deal in Pittsburgh, hasn't said or done remotely half the things that AB has done. And like VP saying, it's something wrong with son. And is I think it's one of those instances where he wasn't supposed to be as big as he was because he was a third round pick. While he might have been talented, while he might have been blossoming and doing all of that, like Steve always alludes to, let's see what he does without Ben. You know what I mean? You came into a world class organization. You've had one of the best quarterbacks of the last 20, 25 years, maybe argument to be up there with the greats. Now you're going to Oakland Raiders team with you might have a Derek Carr or you might have a fresh out of college rookie quarterback. And so now you really think because you've put up all these numbers that you're all world and you can do whatever you want. And this type of behavior and karma in the NFL never pays dividends. Never.
You know,
And I think part of what it is too is if you think back to that conversation that he had with LeBron and everybody on the shop a couple of weeks ago, it's something that he said that's kind of stuck with me. Where when he was talking about Shannon Sharp, and he was like, "Oh, you see Shannon Sharp and Randy Moss and all these guys, on TV because they don't got no money." I don't necessarily believe that, but I don't know. I'm not in their wallet or whatever. And I think that he believes since he got the bag already, right? I'm set. I'm good. So I don't gotta ever play another game of football because I'm good for life. And that could be the case. Or it could be the case that you're good today. And in 5 years from now, you can be doing KFC commercials or whatever the fuck. And I think that's part of what's really driving a lot of this shit is him thinking that, I'm paid. I don't need football needs me more than I need it. And so I can go out and say, this super crazy, ridiculous shit. And it don't matter if somebody checks me or not, because at the end of the day, I'm paid. I got the bag.
I
Yeah, I'm
think
hard
he's
pressed.
I think he's looking at more than football. I think like him being in Hollywood, because what he's on Dancing with the Stars, he's on the Mass. Was that thing the Mass Singer or whatever that was?
Yeah,
He's got this other stuff going on besides football. So he's a national name, and he's feeling himself. Um, and on top of that, he's still sensitive. You know what I mean? He doesn't want anybody to be bigger than him. So he's got this like narcissistic complex going on with him. It's obvious.
yeah. I'm hard pressed to believe that somebody with that kind of personality um, is gonna be smart with his money. Um, so yeah, I think in 5 years he may not. I mean, it is a lot of money he got. He did get the bag. He did chase it. And he got it, but who knows where he's gonna be? I don't think he's gonna have that great of a year this year in Oakland. And but I also don't think Odell's gonna have a great year in Cleveland. I'm concerned about that. I just think there's gonna be so many mouths to feed out there, and hopefully for them, they get the quarterback play that they got at the end of last year and not the beginning. So, but if you had to, who has a better year, AB or Odell on the new team? What do you guys think?
I would say Odell has the better year. And I mean, he's on the better team.
Agreed.
And even though, like you said, there are a lot of mouths to feed, you can't cover everybody, right? So, you can't double Odell and Joku and Landry and still pressure Baker and stop the running backs in the backfield. You know what I'm saying? So you got to kind of pick your poison or whatever. And so even if Odell doesn't have a better year numbers wise, which of course that's obviously what we would judge it off of. But if you see somebody like, Landry and Njoku, if you see their numbers have a big uptick, then I would say that is something that you can definitely correlate to Odell coming to Cleveland. So he could have an impact without necessarily having an impact. You see what I'm saying?
Mm, yep. You agree, EJ?
Yeah, and I mean, again, while Odell has, according to sources, said, when he wanted to be traded, he wanted to go to New England or I think San Fran, maybe. Oh no, it was L.A. or New England. Um, and the Giants are like, you're going to the AFC, and nowhere our fan base is gonna feel even worse. But I think, to everybody's point, he's gonna have a better year, or should have a better year than AB. I mean, just off the strength, we don't know who's gonna be the quarterback in Oakland. We keep hearing how much John Gruden loves Kyler Murray. What if he moves up to get him? And then how do we really know who Derek Carr really is at this point? So AB's playing with fire, man, and he's creating a target on his back just from the media, and other players are seeing this, and whatever respect they might have had for you might go out the window, and it's gonna affect your play, So I would agree with Odell.
Is, is it this year or next year that they move to Vegas?
Next year.
Next year. Okay. Looking forward to that. Also looking forward to the Super Bowl in Miami, and I didn't know, but it's in Tampa the year after.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yep.
Two
Yep.
years in a
Yep.
row,
Yep.
Super Bowl will be here in Florida. So
I'm there. Both of
you
them.
know,
I am there.
if you need somebody, let me
Listen,
know.
I'm there. I'm telling you this far in advance, but I know how you guys are.
No, no, no. See, it's one thing to say I'm there. It's another thing to say, hey, this is what the need is this far in
No,
advance.
I'm like, I'm gonna be there. Like, so we might have business going, but I'm not going for that. I might just be in the area and stuff like that. You can roll. You don't have to do nothing. I'm going there to enjoy myself. You can enjoy yourself with me. Pause. And but I'm gonna be at both of them definitely.
Uh,
You just gotta go. I mean, if you've never been to a Super Bowl, you just gotta go. It's a great experience.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not talking about getting inside and sitting in the stands. I'm just talking about the city.
it'll be that close, and I'm hoping that with the season tickets for Tampa, that we'll get first dibs at Super Bowl tickets. That'd be good, and not have to pay the upcharge on them, because that'd be an
Ching.
opportunity, and I'll be able to see my Cowboys play.
Wow.
I got five on that too. 5,000 on that.
I'll put whatever you want on it, man. Listen. So this past weekend, weather's changing for the northern states. For here, we've been warm already, but Chicago had their first quote unquote warm weekend, and they're back to the shits with it. 24 shootings, with five resulting in murders. Fucking sad story, man. And this is what I was talking about when I said last week that we're so worried and so wrapped up because we're blinded by what people are telling us and what we see on the internet about the racism, the MAGA, and people don't like us. I guarantee you it wasn't MAGA supporters that killed any of these five people or took part in these 24 shootings. It's us. We're doing the dirt. We're killing our own people. The shit's out of control, man. I don't know what needs to be done or how stop it or adjust, but it's nasty, man. Vari, I know you're big on gun laws and gun violence, but what do you propose? Like, what would you say could potentially help the inner city if we're talking about not the mass shootings, but we're talking about inner city?
Well, first, with the point you made about MAGA and you know wherever that was going, I think we're kind of conflating issues there. But as far as what can be done, I think without even talking about the guns, part of the problem is an investment in some of these inner cities. And, you know, these folks have to know that they have a future, you know, beyond being able to have a jump shot or put a couple of lines together in a song, right? Your future can't be tied to a sport or to singing or rapping or whatever. You got to know that you can go and get an education and maybe start a business, go to college, and have a career, et cetera, et cetera. And so I think that that's one of the ways that you can start. But at the same time, you may have businesses and even the government itself that may say, why are we going to go in here and invest in a place like this when there's this type of crime, there's this type of violence going on? It's basically throwing good money after bad. And while I don't agree with that or whatever, I could see that argument being made. But at the end of the day, if you want things like that to happen, you want businesses to come in and create jobs and, have parents able to be home and raise their kids and et cetera, et cetera. Once you kind of extrapolate all that stuff out, I think that we have to deal with the gun issue because these,
Yeah, it was definitely 30 shootings. Um, I think going back though, Steve, to your MAGA versus us thing, I think you're correct in the sense that yes, it is us. But we are as a people have to be binary in the sense that we can talk about two issues and not have to say one or the other. So the MAGA issue is an issue in itself. That's by and large a systemic think, a historical think that is wrong and it's bad and it's just as toxic. But then there is the element that there is in the room where we are killing each other, and Chicago is a violent city historically since the days of Al Capone. Um, and it's a city that has been filled with corruption. Um, and we have a problem here where street gangs and drugs have taken over, and a lot of this violence is there because we lack community, we lack guidance. The young people are getting these guns illegally, and they're doing whatever with them. But I think the larger question at hand is, not the larger question, but one question that I have: what are the city officials doing? They just elected their first black female mayor, who is openly gay. So they've made some history in that because the people spoke. But what's the plan? What's going to be the plan? What are they going to do to address this? And Trump has said some crazy things talking about bringing the National Guard. And listen, man, that sounds good from his standpoint, but we know the problems that can come from that. But what are the public officials doing? And that's the real question that has to be asked. What needs to happen? Because we're clearly in a sense, and I know VP may agree with this, but we're clearly in a point where the people of Chicago, by and large, are not able to just help themselves. So what is the municipality going to do? And we know that for years, the mayor that they've had there, they've said, has not been in tune to the community. He's not really cared. So now we have a new mayor in Chicago. The biggest question is, and I heard snippets of her speech and talking about how people want to change. They wanted something different. Different. I don't know what other things she proposed, but somebody has to get in there and really save lives, and that's the bottom line. You have to care for the people at this point.
I think you know, when I look at a situation like that, it's so big. I know that it's been going on forever, um, and I'm quite sure that the problem has been addressed many different ways, many different angles. I always lead to education. Just provides a safer environment. The less ignorant a person is, the less likely they are to like pop off on something. You know what I mean? You have another outlet. You're thinking about living to the next day. You're trying to accomplish something. Um, if normally if you're an educated person. So that should be the main investment into that city, not trying to beef up police, not trying to do any of these other things. I mean, even jobs, even manufacturing jobs and stuff for the adults. I mean, I don't know if you can, I don't know if you can save a 30 something year old, person that's just like, doesn't give a shit about life and is out there just, wilding out. I don't know if you can save those people. It's sad to say. I mean, it's hurting me right now to say that, but I don't know if you can really save enough people in that, that age range. So you got to hit the kids, and you kind of got to figure out a way to remove them from the environment. So I don't know about education where it's almost like a college atmosphere where these kids stay at the schools or something like that. I mean, I'm just trying to think out the box. You can't just keep dumping money into public school system and think that's going to fix it. I mean, that's a start, but those kids go home, and that's where the problems, really pick
Yeah,
up.
I think the biggest problem. I work with a guy from Chicago, and he tells me that what the biggest problem is that the scumbags that these kids are turning into are being raised by the same scumbags that were doing the same dirt 10, 15 years ago. So you got scumbags raising scumbags. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, I mean, to EJ's point, city officials need to take action. We clearly don't want them to call in the National Guard because we already know how that ends. Um, but, I just was reading one of them, and one of the articles from this weekend, and it said two men walked up to a group of people and just started firing at 10:36 a.m. in the fucking morning. One dude got shot in the face, neck, and chest, and he passed away. And two other kids, 18 years old, were out there, and they got hit and taken to the hospital. One of them was hit in the face and shoulder as well. So it's crazy what's going on out there. To what VP always says, um, people are living like the wild wild west out here, or out there for that matter. I don't know if stricter gun laws are gonna stop that, especially in the inner city. The people that are doing this dirt are not your everyday people.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, I think that the gun laws is not going to be enough for a place like Chicago. It has to kind of be a all of the above kind of strategy. You got to go in there and get the guns out. You got to go in there and break up these gangs. You got to go in there and educate these kids. You got to go in there and probably try to educate some of their damn parents or whatever, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but it's also something that people can't necessarily think is going to be an easy fix. Chicago didn't become a fucked up city overnight. That shit took decades, right? And so it may take that same amount of time to try to turn it around. Um, again, I don't know what the answer is, but I think that whoever goes in, and maybe this new mayor, Mayor Lightfoot, I believe is her name, maybe once she's sworn in and she takes office, maybe she can get the job done if she works hard during the first term and maybe wins a second term or whatever. But I think that it has to be all of the above. They can't just say it's education, it's guns, or it's this thing, it's that thing. They have to come at it from all angles.
Yeah, and that was my thing about it, and to something that E said, you know, it is very tough to wonder and question whether or not you can save people or save anybody in this instance or at any time or whatever. Um, that's the job of people in public service. That's the job for people who are public servants. Um, People in the service industry, in that realm, and I don't mean in the service industry like restaurants, but the civil service industry. We go out there with that battle day to day. Like, yeah, I might save one kid, but it might not be enough. As the goose enough for the gander. And I get it, man. But until you have politicians that are truly invested in the people, and like Vari saying, it is going to take time, but it also takes effort. I look at a city like Baltimore, as we talked about it. You have one of the most violent cities in America per capita, and a large amount of the city municipality has been from here. Many of them educated here, and some implants, and some people that just won because no one else would run and they had the money or whatever. And it's just things that when you look at it and you see the mayor's giving away $50 million, the one hand washes the other, old school backhanded BS. But your schools are trash. We've had to suffer. Our children have had to suffer summers because there has been no AC. The state is giving you money, and the school boards and all of these people. Just what are you doing? And the problem is generationally, like someone said, the ignorance and the education. You got people that are raising people, the people that should be outraged, the parents that should be dealing with this stuff. They were raised by the people that were ignorant. They were raised by people, and it's not everybody, but it's a large amount, and nothing is getting done. And I just think it's like VP said, it's gonna take everything, but you're gonna truly need an administration that's not just gonna be up there to just collect, like the former mayor was allegedly doing, and had no real investment. And so many of these mayors and these city council or city presidents or whatever get in office, and their main goal is to beautify downtown, to gentrify as much as they can, bring people
Mm-hmm.
into the city. So, I mean, your people are dying, man. I mean, and that's the main thing. And I think until you get some people in there that can really spark the people, as well as their government, being local policemen, firemen, whatever, to really make change, man, it's gonna be hard to do anything.
That's a great point that when you brought up about public servants and things like that, EJ, because if you look at a city like Chicago, specifically, and a state like Illinois generally, it's just been corrupt as fuck, especially the city of Chicago. And they've had mayor after mayor after mayor go to prison on some type of corruption charge. Multiple governors who've gone to prison over some type of corruption charge. And that just shows you, like EJ said, these people get elected and their first goal is, what can I do downtown that's going to leave my mark, which allows me to do the next thing, whether it's, run for a higher office, sit on some board where I get a fat payday. And it seems like they think that their job is, let's just make sure the crime stays in the urban areas, and where the taxpayers are, where the good folks are, let's keep it nice and beautiful and keep sprucing it up and doing the next thing and the next thing. And they never focus on fixing the city as a whole. And then you later find out, either while the person is in office or once they leave office, that while they were there, they were doing shit like Catherine Pugh in Baltimore, and taking some kind of kickback, or steering government funds one way because they got their pockets lined or whatever. And it seems like the people in that city are not focused on the people in that city. And that's one thing that kind of gives me hope for this new mayor that they have, Lightfoot, is because she comes from a background of service, and I don't know a lot about her, but from what I've seen of her in a couple of interviews, and from what I've read of her, it seems like she's one of these people who feel like she's called to serve, where she wants to help her community. And hopefully that is what it is, and she can do it. But if not, she'll just be another in a long line of Chicago mayors and Illinois politicians who talk the talk and at the end of the day do nothing for the people in that community.
Yeah, I'm surprised that there wasn't more done under the Obama administration, considering that's his home state.
Yeah, that's his
Um,
home city. That's not just his home state.
right, home city.
He's from
I expect
Chicago.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that was the
mean,
district.
I
Yeah.
I expected more. It just seems like I was reading the article earlier when I was just looking into it, and there was an article in January that said crime is down. There were only uh 20 shootings in January. Only only 20 shootings in
Hmm.
January. Like that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
That was one of my only. That was one of my only few criticisms of President Obama at one point because as a senator and you came from that, you come from Chicago, you represent Chicago. I just don't. And there was always an argument that as a president, there are things that you have to do that are status quo. And I get it. And that's a part of the problem. Status quo politics, man. I don't see how we as a people, and not just talking about him, and I ain't gonna lie, man, I kind of appreciated, if I appreciated one thing from Trump, was his ability to say something about it. I'm just be objective, even where it's impossible at times to look at Trump and see anything positive. But I gotta be somewhat objective, even though the solution wasn't the best. I appreciated the fact that he said something about it, because for me, on a national scale, man, how do we call ourselves Americans when and the status quo is, oh, we worry about Syria, we worry about this place, we worry about Israel, we worry about that place. And I get it, as the world leading superpower, we've come up with this belief to facilitate our modern day colonialism, and act like we're the savior to everybody, and we pick and choose who we want to send aid to, because we still can't even bail out Puerto Rico, which is a part of us. New Orleans is still under crap, so yeah, we pick and choose where we want to be saviors for. But how do we justify, how do we continue to justify, and then this goes back to something VP always talks about, how uh the young lady in the Bronx is no longer the status quo politics. When are we as a people gonna look at the state legislature of Illinois, the city officials, hell, the national scale, and say, when are we as a people gonna actually start to take care of our people? There's no reason why Flint should still be um, as bad. Maybe, I don't know that they can reverse everything, but that's still something that even in media circles we're not talking about largely. The violence in Chicago, the violence in Baltimore, the lack of aid in Puerto Rico, um, all of these things. And I just think, we have to, and I don't know how it's done, but we have to call on our public officials to be more humanitarians for people right here in our own country. And maybe not popular, but it has to start.
No, I can definitely agree with a lot of that, EJ, and that is something, as I've um, read things currently that kind of look back on the Obama administration. I feel like um, Obama's handling of Black America is something that we gave him a pass for, and it's something that I even gave him a pass for. And I never thought he would do anything like specifically for Black people, especially in the first term. I figured after he got reelected, he has nothing else to
It's
lose at this point. That's when he would kind of, go hard and do some things for us. And he never did. And I think part of the issue is that Obama looked at America kind of the way that I look at it, where, we're a nation of laws, and we, we are against discrimination and all those things. And we have this whole credo that, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? And that's normally true. The problem is that because of things like systematic discrimination that was put in place, by policy, not just some guy doing it, with things like, redlining and Jim Crow and on and on and on, school segregation and all those things like that. You got some black people who got a boat that has a hole in it, and some black people don't even got a damn boat. They're trying to tread water, you know. And so we can't just sit back and say, well, whoever the next president, congressman, governor, whatever, rising tide is going to lift all boats, because that's not true, right? And that's one thing that I kind of like about Charlemagne the God on his show on the Breakfast Club, you know, because he has a large audience who is predominantly black. A lot of politicians, mostly on the Democratic side, go to his show to get their message out to Black America. And one question that he's been asking every candidate that comes through is, what is your Black agenda? What are you planning on doing for Black people? Because before, a lot of us just went in and said, hey, this person has the D next to their name, got my vote, right? And we're not necessarily asking them, what is it that you plan to do for us in our communities? Because us and our communities have been left behind. So we need to start getting answers to that question.
You got anything on that, Senor? Excuse me.
No, it's um, I think they touched upon everything. I do think Obama, in my opinion, was looking past himself. So it wasn't like a one and done thing for him. I mean, I'm thinking he had thoughts of another minority president, whether that be black, Hispanic, Asian, female, uh, homosexual, whatever it is. I think he was looking as if, hey, I have to be the benchmark, or the genesis of not a white guy, and here's what I can do. You know, he wasn't. I think he went into it not trying to be a stereotype, saying that he can just do the job as a human being and not necessarily pick out, helping us, because that just would have been too obvious, and they would have just jumped all over that. So
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt, Eve. But I get what you're saying. He didn't want to be the last black president, right, or
right,
the last minority president,
right,
and that's understandable, right? But when you look at the way politics work in this country, every constituency gets something done for them, whether they're gun lovers with the NRA. You watch, if you watch anything political on the news, they're always talking about working class white folks or whatever. Or even when they say working class folks is code for white people. They're not normally talking about black people,
right.
the gay community, the Jewish community, the religious community as a whole, even people who don't necessarily have a great representation in this country still get lip service paid to them. And I'm talking about Muslim folks, right? Because they haven't been doing great here since 9/11. And I'm not, I don't, it's not like all Muslims are terrorists or anything like that. But since that happened, they've been kind of ostracized, right?
Hmm.
But even they have a constituency where people come out and say, we support you, we love you, we want to make sure we do right by your community, et cetera, et cetera. And it don't seem like black people get that kind of love. And the one person who we should have been able to get that from should have been Barack Obama as president of the United States, where he could have told his education secretary, Arnie Duncan, who also comes from the Chicago school system, by the way, kind of tying that in together or whatever. He could he
Mm.
could have had him say, "Hey, I want you to start steering some of this money into more urban areas or whatever." You know, his commerce secretary or small business administrator, these are the people who he could have directed to say, "Hey, we need to start coming up with some programs to help some of these inner city places to build up too." We can't just say we're gonna fix up downtown and then everybody else can suck a dick, right? But he didn't do that. And if his only reason for not doing that was to ensure that another minority has the opportunity to become president in this country, then I would say he totally missed the mark there.
I'm gonna say this. I think we gave Obama too much credit because, keeping it real for me, um, he wasn't on my radar initially. Um, and Michelle Obama earned her name, the nickname, the closer, in certain circles, especially in my eyes, because she was the one that did it for me. When I saw her speak, and when she came to speak to my school, while I was in school, um, in college, she did it for me. She related to me. She related to my struggle. She spoke to me. I can't really recall to this day Obama speaking directly to me as a black person to epitomize everything that you guys are saying, or to piggyback on everything you guys are saying. So I don't really think that was ever who he was. I don't think that's who he is now. I still have never really heard him speak to one way or the other in forums I can't recall. I could be wrong. And it could be by and large because culturally he's been raised to think differently. I don't know. Um, I've never really felt that he's taken a profound statement towards anything. Now, I haven't really paid a lot of attention to his interviews that he's done more recently since he's been out. But I think, man, and this is another knock. He was community organizing, community driven. Even when he tapped into the rappers, Jeezy was one of his biggest supporters. And how you couldn't even get that man a pass to come to the White House because of his criminal background, you know. And thankfully, Jeezy saw bigger than himself that he didn't blast this guy. He didn't. He understood. And I'm saying that to say I just don't know if Obama was ever that guy for the marginalized and black people. And maybe we just gave him too much credit. He was a good president. He's a good man. But it's funny, and I can't remember who it was that said this to me when I was studying. They said George Bush did way more for black people than Obama did. When you talk about how aggressive, no,
I
I'm gonna tell
disagree
you
with that.
why. It was a black person that said this to me. Oh, it was a president. It was a former president of
Hmm.
Morgan State University. He said this because, huh?
I still disagree.
No, no,
I
no.
said I
I
still
mean,
disagree. But go ahead.
initially, I didn't understand what he meant, and I mean, I don't think he meant on a surface level or cultural level, not even symbolically, but he was talking more about how Bush's task force on social justice, or was it something with civil rights, was so aggressive, and how in Maryland, when we first started formulating the research that we needed to sue the state of Maryland, essentially under O'Malley's term, once again, F.U. O'Malley, and how the state of Maryland systemically has shitted on black colleges in the state. It was Bush's task force that when the state was giving them so much hell, that came down and said, "No, we're going to back you, and we'll put these guys in the court." So I'm saying that to say, and it's not a caveat or doesn't capture their whole presidency. I'm just saying in that instance, what this guy was saying to me from an administrative state level, that he felt Bush's administration was way more aggressive than Obama's. And when it came to the case spilling over, as it's still going, into Obama's administration, he couldn't get a guy or anyone from there to come, up the road to Baltimore. You know what I mean? So I don't know.
He stuck his neck out. Two things I can recall, and this is it had nothing to do with law or anything like that or pushing legislation. He stuck his neck out with Trayvon Martin. When he said that my son would look like him, and he stuck his neck out with the professor. I can't remember his name. Remember, like this was his first term where the cop uh, arrested a guy going into his own house, and he brought them to the White House to have a beer on the lawn. You guys remember that? White cop, black professor. The professor got like basically harassed by the cop at his own house, at his own front door. He was walking in.
No.
You guys don't remember that?
No, I don't
They were
remember.
calling it. They had a. The three of them had a beer, and they were basically in the White House garden. Look it up. You guys have technology right in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take your word for it.
I think it would have been a little too cliche, and I think it would have been what people expected for him to constantly make reference to our culture or him being a black man, or you know what I mean. I get what you guys are saying, um, and I think he could have done better, but I think it would have been a bit much for him to constantly do that because what. Although we read through the lines and we understand what is being said when certain people talk, how would it feel if Bush or Trump or whoever was standing up there and they were just like, we got to do right for the white man. You know what I mean? Regardless of what we think and regardless of what our people think has gone on in America for years and years and years, um, you know, it's still a bit much for someone to just stand up there and do that. So I think maybe that was his, why he didn't do it. And I think it might have been just a play there. And then to the point of, you know, doing more is just he had to clean up 8 years of the shit before him. He had to clean up before all the George Bush shit. So I mean, we see that now. We kind of see how that rolls over, and we look at the Trump administration and how Fox News is constantly making light of how good employment rates are and things of that nature, but don't make any mention to it being a direct result or a lingering result of the Obama administration and the years that he was in office. So, um, yeah, I think he could have done more, but it is what it is, right?
Indeed.
Um, so did you guys see the Joker trailer? Just real quick.
We can't talk about anything comic related that isn't that isn't Logan because VP is gonna shit on it like he's trash. He works for the Fox Marvel team.
Is it supposed to be like a psychological thriller? What are they trying to do with Joker here?
Yeah, I think it's showing him. Yeah, him kind of how he got to his insanity, to the state that he was in. It looks interesting. It looks interesting. Um, I'm curious about what it's gonna be like.
It's yeah, it's more being shot to be like a profile of this guy, exactly what you guys are saying, and they're borrowing from the one of the books, the Joker book, showing his inception and all of that, and it's essentially going to take place at a time where Batman doesn't exist yet, and he's an older Joker, and the crazy thing that's going to be to keep your eye on is that Jared Leto is still going to be the Joker in another film. But the theory has always been that there's been more than one Joker. So this one will be the original, I guess, Joker. And then Jared Leto's character might be somebody, who comes along later on. It's gonna be interesting to see, but all the reviews and things that they're saying, is that Phoenix got really into this character role, and it should be a good one.
Yeah, it looked interesting. It looked interesting. I hope he can channel it and do well. We've seen Heath Ledger, and it's hard to match up to that still. Even Jared Leto got a raw deal, and I thought he did pretty good in Suicide Squad, even though he didn't have much screen time. Um, did you guys get your tickets for Endgame? Mm?
Nah.
Yep,
Well, I knew you weren't gonna get them,
yep, yep,
Ari.
yep.
I mean,
VP ain't real.
yeah, we already know. We know how that goes. He gonna be searching Groupon and shit.
So you will get. Someone's going to spoil it for you, Vari. Probably me.
I copped for that same Thursday as the NFL draft. So it's a big big Thursday. I'm excited, um, but also nervous at the same time because of all the things that we've always talked about. But I got something off book for you guys, real quickly. There was in DC today. There's a lot of media going around on how this historical corner, Georgia Ave and Florida Ave, where Georgia Ave and Florida Ave meet, pretty much a historical corner in DC where the Metro PCS store or whatever store happens to occupy it at the time. I think I don't know how long the Metro PCS has been there, but it's currently Metro PCS, right? They play go-go music for the neighborhood, daily. And what happened more recently was that the white neighbors in that area called the police and got the go-go music to cease. And if you never been to DC, if you don't know too much about DC, go-go music is like the house music for, I don't know what you guys got, what is that, the bass music of Miami. You know what I mean? It's culturally what the city is and what it was built on. And so people are really up in
Reggaeton.
reggaeton for Miami.
I'm not from Miami.
No, man. Stick to the bass music. I mean, reggaeton, I know came later, but I mean, I think, and VP could speak to it, but just think of any music that is akin to your city, or it's like cheesesteaks for Philly. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's a part of that culture. And so people have been up in arms about this. And I think actually, I'm sorry, it's 7th Street in Florida Ave, and this is in the Shaw neighborhood, which is quite close to Howard University. And at some point back in the day, it was very black community, and people up in arms with it. So I guess the overall premise for me and the question that I've wrestled with for quite some time: gentrification. What are you guys' thoughts on gentrification? The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I
What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, he took the words right out of my mouth. I not too long ago, I was like binge watching Insecure. You guys seen that right on HBO?
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching a season where they were doing gentrification in Inglewood, and they had this girl, white lady, out in front of a storefront that used to be like, old, like a Waffle House or chicken and waffles place or something like that.
Yeah.
They changed it to like a coffee shop or something like that. I might be off with the stores, but you know, to the point where she was changed the name of the city or the town. She was calling it, like I would. They were giving their own little like trendy name and stuff like that, completely trying to change the image of a place. And it's really obvious, just like VP said, where they'll raise it to the point where they get the poor people out. I've always wondered where these people are going that can't afford to stay there, where they end up. I mean, there's going to eventually be places where we're just going to run out of places to be. I haven't thought too much on it in my life, but it's definitely something I started to pay attention in the last 5 years. It's a real problem. On the one hand, it's kind of hard to argue against it because if you are improving the property value, if you are bringing jobs in, if you are lowering crime, if you're making it a better place to live, it's kind of hard to argue against that. But at the same time, you're pushing people out. I don't know what the solution is uh, to, to try to keep the same people there. Um, but I don't know if those people should have first right of refusal on the jobs that come up. Maybe give these people that live in the community small business loans to build something themselves. I don't know what the solution is. It's a pickle. Oh, I used a
Yeah.
mark word. It's a pickle.
Yeah. It's I think partially, yeah. I think what you alluded to with the giving the first uh the first jobs, or the first dibs at jobs is part of it. The other part of it is what EJ mentions in a lot of the conversations we have, which is getting with the the leaders in the city and talk about zoning, because you're going to have, I mean, it's when there's value in something and someone can have it, they're going to buy it. I mean, that's just human nature. If I can buy something that's going to turn into something, then yeah, absolutely, I'm going to buy it. So if you're looking at a rundown neighborhood, but you see the potential, or a neighborhood where you see individuals that depend on something specific, and you can provide that supply and demand, then you're going to do that, and that's what the wealthy do. Um, and excuse me, and then they build the neighborhoods, they buy the broken down homes, and they make them, they make them bigger, they make them, nice. And to Vari's point, Brooklyn is not Brooklyn anymore. You walk down the street in Brooklyn and it's straight hipster now. It's like an art district. When you walk through most of Brooklyn, from what everybody remembers it as 10, 15 years ago. So um, yeah, I mean, part of it is you gotta try to keep us there, or keep the lower class people there, or the people that black people, minorities in general, or you gotta push for zoning laws that state that if you make a certain amount, you can't do whatever in this area, whether it means opening business, unless it's beneficial to the area, whether it means purchasing, the homes and being owners of it, and collecting, the Section 8 from people, and just rich getting richer. Um, that's the only thing I can think of.
I guess I got a question in the sense, is gentrification, I guess this is for E and Steve, is gentrification more on, I get the systemic part of it, but Steve, you said Brooklyn isn't the Brooklyn it was 15 years ago. And as a native New Yorker, should I be mad that it's not the Brooklyn of years ago? That when I walk in downtown Brooklyn or near Fort Greene or Brownsville, well, no, Brownsville is still Brownsville, but certain places that it is safer, like and it's safer now because white folks have now come in, people that are not native to it, and was it our fault for not making it safe for ourselves?
That's I think that's a good question. And I think there's a point there, but it doesn't always happen that way. So for Brooklyn, sure. I mean, some will say that it's in a better place now. Many will say it's in a better place now. Um, but that's what I was saying is it really comes down to having the means. And maybe that's what E was kind of getting at when he was saying, provide the option for small business loans and things of that nature to allow for people to build up the neighborhood that they're in, as opposed to allowing outsiders come in and kind of, just take it, and hey, this is mine now, and I have the money to build it up. Yeah, I think if the areas are piss poor, I mean, to the conversation we had in Chicago, if you can get a bunch of investors to go in there and kind of clean that shit up, and raise taxes and try to get some of those, you know, scumbags out of there, then it could be a much nicer place, I'm sure, in some of those areas. um, but you do take away some of, a lot of the memories. You take away what people have known certain areas for. Especially, in New York City, it's just getting even worse. You do take away the mom and pop places, because even though it's turned into a hipster kind of hippish, there's still a lot of the large scale corporations coming in there. When I went to New York the last time, and we spent some time in Manhattan, you walk up and down the street, and all you see is um, franchises. Buffalo Wild Wings. Like you couldn't find a
Hmm.
small place to eat. You had to travel outside of your normal area to find a spot where you can get a true bacon egg and cheese sandwich
Mm.
because everything was Denny's and shit like that.
Times Square totally different now. Totally different. Times Square used to be kind of rough.
Yeah,
Now it's like Disney.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean Times Square. I don't think is always a good example, but I mean, and I get what you're saying. But when you talk about Manhattan, and I look at Hell's Kitchen in that area, it's 1,000 bars and hipster places, and in New York, I think you can see it. There's like a few places that ain't changed. The North Bronx, where Steve and I were born, is largely still the same, and it's primarily because you have a lot more middle class black families that are able to keep their homes. Same with a lot of places in Queens, and then the South Bronx is just always so bad. It's I don't think they're gonna gentrify that or be able to gentrify that, as that's been one of the poorest places. But I mean, when you talk about Harlem, and I remember places like you wouldn't even walk. You couldn't even go to the store. Some summers, and there's white folks out there walking their dog 11 p.m. and and even where my lady lives in Baltimore, in her neighborhood that she grew up in, it's gentrifying. And it's like, on the one hand, you feel better because you feel safe, but then on the other hand, you get this bullshit like you have in DC, where people who haven't lived in this place more than 2 years are telling people to stop their culture that they've known their whole lives. And I think gentrification, man, is like, it's one of those things, because while people hate it, they still gonna travel down there and brunch it up and do these different things. But it's just one of those things, and I felt compelled to like bring that to you guys and ask about it.
I like
Um,
brunch. I like brunch. I like mimosas and bellinis.
I love that shit.
Brunch it up.
Before the
Brunch it
hipster
up.
I
spots
love brunch.
popped up, you didn't really. I didn't know. I knew what
Yo,
a mimosa was, but
some
bellinis
crepes.
and you didn't have the bottomless joints like that. So for brunch,
Brunch is the shit. That's one of my favorite meals. Um,
this guy,
also
it's
keep
not a meal. It's an event.
it's an event. Keep on your radar, also, fellas. Not to say we got to get into it, but the 3 church burnings in Alabama, is that?
I'll have to look into that a little more.
Yeah.
Need some more time for that.
I think.
Looks like go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just giving that update. Dun 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 dun. Looks like UVA.
Yeah, Virginia, huh?
And they got knocked out last year, first seed to a worse seed, right?
Yeah, they were
Literally,
16-1.
they lost to number 68 because they were the 1 seed, they were the top 1 seed, and they lost to the lowest
16,
16.
yeah. And they started off rocky this year too. Their first game was rocky against the 16 seed. And
Yeah, but they've been number one pretty much all year, though.
yeah. So
Yeah, but
this time next week, we will have seen the first episode of Game of Thrones.
Mm,
my man.
It seemed to have come so fast.
Mhm.
I'm excited
that's what
about
she
that.
said.
Real mature. So yeah, we'll have something to talk about next week. And Senor, I know that you are an avid Thronesman. So
Me and VP, I got. I'm gonna do a Game of Thrones quote every week
a Game of Thrones.
for our listening president. Yeah, I'll give you one right now just to see if you like it. Drinking and lust. No man can match me in these things. I am the god of tits and wine. I shall build a shrine to myself at the next
The
brothel I visit.
great.
Who said that?
Tyrion.
Tyrion, the greatest ever,
Tyrion.
the best character. Tyrion dies,
That's right.
We riding.
And he's gonna die.
yeah, he's gonna die, dog. Ooh, is he gonna die? That poor midget.
I'm just hoping that
Um,
one of the local bars does watch parties, cause either that, yeah, motherfuckers gonna have to give me an online joint.
no, sir. No, no, no. That would be against my code of conduct.
Foul.
Um,
Yeah, you get FaceTime me.
dog,
You
some
don't got HBO now? It's only 14.99.
you could probably
I broke down and got that. I don't pay for shit either,
you have
man.
cable.
Hmm.
You could probably call your cable provider and be like, "Yo, I want to try it for free for a couple months, at least for a month."
Like that's like on the like immediate response sheet. They know people are gonna call and say that shit.
At least for a month. We don't do it, but depending on who's in your area, they might do it.
HBO now is $15.
Or
Man.
you could do HBO now.
I think it's cheaper than that. Can't get
Um,
cheaper than that.
I could let you borrow my login,
My man.
my HBO login. You'd have to use it on
You want to
HBO
cheap?
now though.
You want it cheaper than that? That's why gentrification is happening. EJ. You want cheaper than fucking 14.99. You want free.
Listen,
Well,
man.
exactly.
Yo, HBO be having these moments, yo. It'll go months and months playing bullshit movies like
Mm,
Kindergarten Cop.
That's my shit, yo. My shit.
Yo, it does suck, man. It does suck. I scrolled through. I got stuck today watching fucking Ocean's 8 because there was like nothing else on this motherfucker. I got all the way down to O, and I'm like Ocean's 8 just to see Rihanna in that dress.
Mm.
Mm. Yes,
Yeah,
Lord.
they do that. Like you'll get up and turn on it. Fuck am I talking? Turn it on, and you got grumpy old men every day for like 3 months.
Right.
But I mean, you know, it is what it is. That's where they're making their money now. These networks, they're not making money on movies. They're making money on the shows. The shows is where it's at for them because that's what's getting the viewership. People are not calling up like, "Yo, I want to watch a movie. I need to subscribe to HBO." People are calling up like, "Yo, Game of Thrones is starting Sunday. I'm gonna call y'all Saturday and get my get my HBO back."
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna figure something out, man. I mean, I might. And it's crazy because soon as I got rid of it, like hella movies I wanted to see just popping up. I'm like, God damn it. It's
Hmm.
terrible, man.
14.99 according to E. I don't know what that costs because yeah,
That's it, man. You know I don't pay for jack. The that's the only thing. I don't even have Netflix, man.
I
I
do
don't pay
have
for that.
Netflix, but I'm about to switch to T-Mobile so that I can get my Netflix covered.
Yeah. What do you use,
So
E?
I cannot disclose my.
Okay.
Actually, what I do for real is I have just a regular antenna. All right, you get like a
Oh,
lot
this
of 4K
motherfucker.
stuff, right? Shut up. And then I've got
you have an
I do have
over-the-air?
Amazon. Yeah, I have Amazon Prime, um, which gets a lot. I mean, I do get a lot of stuff with Amazon Prime.
Not for
Got the
TV.
HBO now, huh?
Not for TV.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, video. You get Prime Video.
Oh, HBO. I mean, Amazon Prime has HBO in it.
No, it's got all the Amazon Prime shows. Like, so they've got
Uh,
their own thing too. Like, like Mr. Robot,
Jack Ryan
Jack Run,
and
all
yeah,
that stuff,
yeah.
right? And then they've got their movies. They got a ton of movies on there. They got a ton of channels on there. It's all free. I might or might not have something called what is
Don't do
it?
it. Don't do it. Save
Yeah,
yourself.
and then I got
Yo, all I want to know is how you still got the 98 hookup for cable.
Yo, have you seen an antenna lately? They're like flat, like they look like mouse pads.
Mm.
They're
Nah, I
just
wouldn't think to
flat,
get an antenna.
wiggly, like mouse pad things. And these things come in for like if the broadcast is like 4K on a regular TV, it's like 4K. Everything's like 1080p. like the news is crispy clear.
Yo, you living on the edge over there, brother.
This dude lives like a fucking mountain man. Tell
Yeah.
you.
I just go out to bars if I want to watch anything else.
I watch too many sports. Too much sports to not have
We can't
cable.
listen to you anyway, man. You come with some commission with what you're saying to us.
I don't make commission. Not off of that.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
I'm in the internet field, sir.
Whatever.
Yeah, I can't do that. I don't know where I would be if I didn't work for a company that provided the service because that shit is expensive. I probably have internet. I probably have someone else's Netflix password because I only have mine because I don't pay for cable. And I would definitely be doing
They keep
something else.
raising those rates too, man. They
Yeah,
just raised Netflix, didn't they?
yeah, it went up to $11. That's why I'm trying to grab a hold of this T-Mobile if I can get mine. Yeah, if I can get that, that'd be good money.
Yeah, this one bar had a Game of Thrones trivia brunch, but I don't see nothing about no damn watch parties. These motherfuckers better act right.
Bars aren't gonna do watch parties for Game of Thrones.
The one place we went to in Florida did it that one time.
That Geek Easy did y'all go to that?
I don't know what it was. It was
Down there?
some dive Steve took me to. He never takes me to fun shit when I went out there.
This guy.
I can't do that. Like I gotta watch Thrones at home. I need to be able to pause and rewind and analyze. Like it takes me like an hour and a half to watch a 1 hour episode.
I gotta do something.
Be breaking that shit down.
Yeah, he's overdosing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yo, EJ, what you could try is, I mean, I don't know how you would stay away from anything, but you could wait until after episode 2 airs, and then get you an HBO subscription because you get a 30-day free trial, and that'll take you through the whole 6 weeks.
And Fire Stick it? No.
Or, I mean, let's go out on a limb here and say, shit, you could subscribe to it and pay for
nasty,
it.
Man. This is nasty.
God forbid that you add an extra $9.99 on your bill.
No.
Yeah, I agree. Don't do that.
No.
Yeah,
Okay, Mr.
Listen,
Uber
you want
Eats,
it, you go get
groceries
it.
delivered.
That's it.
We will not take your financial advice
Steve,
on
Right.
services.
Steve out here like, do you see what they're charging for Grey Poupon these days?
It's a Miami delicacy.
Oh, shoot. Oh, that's too funny. That's
All
too
right.
funny.
So that's it for this
funny.
week. Catch us on Instagram. Catch us on Twitter once again. Catch us on Spotify. Catch us on the Apple Podcast. Soon, hopefully, to be on iHeart if the Savage decides he's going to go ahead and finish what he started. And YouTube. So, without further ado, VP, if you will.
Hey everybody, every decision you ever made in life brought you to this podcast. We glad you made the decision to stick with us, and we hope that you'll join us next time. Don't forget to like, comment, follow, and subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and we'll see you next time. Peace.